Welcome to April Anger 2025. This is the second episode of the yearly tournament series that we always run. We're going to have our first match, going to be Cloud against Mega Man. Looks like we're going to be on Final Destination for this one. This should be a little bit to Mega Man's advantage simply because there are no platforms for Cloud to land on, which means that Mega Man should be landing a lot more of his projectiles. Or at least Cloud's going to have to take a lot of shield damage in order to not get hit in the face by them. I suppose the amiibo could always parry everything, but they generally don't. There are specific tricks you can do to try to get the amiibo to parry more often, but it's not foolproof. Although it is slightly more effective than the human players can normally manage, which I think is a pretty good balancing compromise. Cloud just got his limit and he used it on the Limit Break Clim Hazard. That's his up special. It's great for recovering. It does deal damage, and it's more damage than without using the Limit Break. But also his other Limit Breaks are usually a lot more impressive offensively. Granted, Cloud is absolutely dominating this stock. Goes for a fully, well, not a fully charged, but an almost fully charged forward smash. Which I guess is something to go over. You can charge a smash attack for about a second, and that's when it reaches its full power, and anything after that doesn't increase its power, but it does let you change up the timing. It's a nice change for Smash Ultimate, so I appreciate that it's in the game, but it can also be a problem teaching it to the amiibo, because then the amiibo learns the timing of the forward smash, instead of the reason why being that if you let it go too early, it might not have hit. So in general, in training these amiibo, I try to avoid doing that sort of thing. And in true fashion, the amiibo generally avoid a spike just over the ledge, put Mega Man in a terrible situation. And he was not able to get a projectile to land on Cloud, and Mega Man, I guess, didn't have his jump, his double jump, because he wasn't able to make it back. Or even if he had his double jump and he couldn't have made it back anyway, I would have expected him to get a little bit closer. It's one of those things that you always have to check in editing. Smash Bros. Ultimate does have I want to call it a mechanic, but it's more of a visual indication of when a character, first of all, uses their double jump, and also when they do not have their double jump left. However, it is a little bit subtle, so it's really hard to tell in the moment, unless you are specifically looking for it. And normally I'm more focused on the action than to see the subtle indicator to tell that a character is out of their double jump. Even more so, other visual indicators such as, and Mega Man keeps getting the first out of 3 required parries to parry Cloud's forward smash. It does mean he takes slightly less damage, so it's still good to go for. And to a normal player, I would recommend once you get the first parry, just hold out the shield for the other 2 hits. Simply because if you try to parry the other 2 hits and you fail, then you still get hit by the enormous sword. Whereas if you shield, you will block it. Mega Man did finally get his first kill. And Cloud keeps trying to charge up these forward smashes and getting shot in the face for it. He did get that forward smash to land, but Mega Man finally learns to shield all 3 hits. Cloud able to make it back. You always have to wonder with the amiibo. Sometimes they just miss the ledge. Cloud's Limit Break Clim Hazard does have the special blue effect that's new to Smash Ultimate. Certain moves have an extra camera zoom in, which is actually interesting because in Smash 4, where I guess you could say that sort of thing started, it was really just Cloud's Limit Break moves and Little Mac's KO Punch. With the KO Punch, I understand because it is a very important move, you have to know about it, but also sometimes you'll get an 8-man free-for-all, and the camera just keeps zooming in on these random people who are using these moves that dominate the camera. Cloud gets his Limit Break up. Let's see how he's going to use it. He baits out an air dodge from Mega Man, gets him with a down tilt. And Limit Break Clim Hazard does kill Mega Man. In contrary to what I said earlier. And up next we have Rosalina against Mewtwo. One thing I will say that these two amiibo both have in common is actually a more practical concern than a gameplay concern. They both are very hard to fit on my shelf. And when I say that, I specifically mean that Rosalina's dress and Mewtwo's tail both take up a lot of horizontal space behind the actual figurine. So I have to put them in the corners to try to make sure that they don't interrupt the other amiibo. Something I've noticed is that as more and more amiibo get made, I don't know how much of a role Sakurai has in choosing the design for them, especially now that they're not based off of the in-game character trophies anymore. But a lot of pre-established rules in typical Sakurai fashion seem to be thrown to the wayside for the sake of making a character more unique. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. In fact, it's actually more beneficial than in general. But it does also mean that if you want any sort of standardized method for storing your amiibo, you're going to have a difficult time because amiibo are getting either slightly larger or taking up more space than they never would before. If you imagine it like every amiibo is allowed a certain cylinder of space in which their character is allowed to take up room on the actual physical amiibo, that cylinder is getting bigger and bigger. First of all, the Smash Ultimate amiibo seem to be, I'd say, maybe 10% larger than the Smash 4 amiibo, which is interesting. I can only imagine they didn't bother keeping in with the scale of the last game, which is fine. But also characters get extra flourishes or little special effects around their character on the amiibo base, and they keep getting things like usually swords that extend out really, really far. Sephiroth in particular, and Hero's amiibo actually has his sword extend below the base of the amiibo, which I can only imagine has messed up a lot of people's shelving. Anyways, on to the match. Mewtwo, not looking too hot. Already on a second stock and over percentage from Rosalina. Mewtwo is a character who, he definitely hits hard, makes up for his vulnerabilities in the getting punched in the face department. Which is a weird sentence to say, because in real life, everyone has a vulnerability to being punched in the face. Although I guess certain animals, like a rhinoceros, really doesn't have a vulnerability to being punched in the face. Maybe if you were to get another rhinoceros to attack the first rhinoceros in the face, you could consider it a vulnerability, but Up Smash is able to take Rosalina's stock. You can actually see Luma does this weird thing when Rosalina gets KO'd. Luma follows Rosalina's position, but not on the Z-axis. So Rosalina gets the star KO launched into the background, and Luma just sort of becomes smaller and follows Rosalina's approximate coordinates on the screen. I actually discovered it very early on when Smash Ultimate came out. I want to say maybe 5 months after release. And I thought it was this unique thing that, oh, if Rosalina gets KO'd with very specific timing. But turns out that it's really not that specific timing. It's just how the game works. Mewtwo, he was able to land, but then he rolled right into Rosalina again. Good impromptu combo from Luma and Rosalina there. Mewtwo's just having a hard time getting anything done. He's also getting juggled repeatedly, which is also not good. For him, I should say. I guess it's great for Rosalina fans. I couldn't even see what attack connected there. And Rosalina just took that match. Very dominant showing. And now we have Young Link against Ryu. Going to be an interesting match for Amiibo here, mostly in that Young Link is a character with very dominant projectiles, but from what I remember of the Young Link Amiibo, he kind of refrains from using them. And they're probably going to be pretty important in this matchup. Ryu is a slower character, which of course usually is balanced out by great damage and or KO potential, which both things are not things that Ryu lacks, I'd say. And usually slower characters are more vulnerable to projectile spam, which would be Link's strength that Young Link's strength he'd really need to lean into here. But if he doesn't, then he just needs to count on his sword being better than Ryu's fists. And Young Link has a pretty short sword, which I guess it probably also does count as a short sword, which is a more in-depth classification than I think I'm qualified to talk about. Even though it should just be a short that's short. And Ryu gets his life saved by canceling something of Link, and Ryu is not able to make it back from that. I thought he would have had his jump. Maybe he spurned it. They got a trade there, both characters actually surviving though. Ryu had a low enough percentage to survive, and Young Link got a great tech. Focus attack loses to projectiles. That's not a specific in-game mechanic, but if your opponent is really far away and they throw something at you, you're going to be worse off. Young Link trying to recover, air dodges, and he's able to stall out Ryu enough, although he doesn't snap the ledge that time. Something to know about, I guess it's all the Link spin moves, but I'd say normal Link and Young Link especially, is that they seem to have a hard time grabbing the ledge during the beginning part of the move. Not entirely sure if that's intentional or just a symptom of how the move works. Then another thing to mention about all three of the Link's recovery actually, is that if you get too overeager trying to either, well, usually it's when you try to recover in one direction and pull back in the other direction to avoid or fake out your opponent. Something about the inputs gives you a very high probability of accidentally B-reversing the move, which actually does royally mess up your momentum. I'm not entirely sure how it works. I've mostly just noticed that when I do it, I die for it. Young Link, I don't think was going to be able to make that, but he got saved by Ryu. Ryu getting up into the boomerang directly. There were so many other viable ways of not getting hit by that. Young Link going on the physical offensive. Young Link does have good normal moves. I've heard it said before that Young Link is a character who is more malleable than other characters in that you have more freedom and to choose how you want to play him. A lot of other characters are more specialized in certain aspects, so you have to play them a certain way if you want to be effective. Not that there aren't ways to change it up a little bit. If a character has a lot of projectiles, you can just choose to ignore it. Once I lost to a Simon player who only used the whip moves. That felt humiliating, because normally Simon players are known for spamming out their projectiles relentlessly. But this player did get very good with them. When you do have a very long whip, there are certain bonuses to that. Ryu actually hitting Link with recovery, not getting the initial hitbox, which is of course the strongest. The later hitboxes do at least hit your opponent away from you, which is good, especially in a recovery situation. But in true Street Fighter fashion, you really want to hit him with that beginning part of the move. The rest is just a bonus or an afterthought. Though it's interesting because in Street Fighter, that's normally because the beginning part of the move has, depending on the game I suppose, invincibility of some sort, which also makes it good for hitting opponents jumping over you because they're jumping over you, probably throwing out a hitbox, and if you're invincible for it, you get a free punish anyway. But again, there's so many Street Fighter games, it can be hard to make any sort of blanket statements. Because you're trying to talk about one move that's shown up, I'd say at least 20 times, and if you include spin-offs and whatever, it gets more. Young Link B-reversing the boomerang, he was able to actually make it back to the ledge. It didn't even occur to me you could B-reverse the boomerang, because normally you just throw it backwards. Also, you normally do it when the opponent's away from you, so it's not really a circumstance where you need to B-reverse. The main advantage of a B-reverse being that you put in the input and it reverses your momentum. There are certain moves that are better and or worse at that, but that's more of a move-dependent basis. Young Link goes low, does not grab the ledge, so he's able to hit Ryu with his recovery. Ryu jumps over his boomerang perfectly, though, and jumps off the stage and is not able to grab the ledge. I want to say that Young Link won, but it's more accurate to say that Ryu lost that match. And now we have Terry against Fox. Gonna be on Smashville for this one. Terry immediately leads the match with running into Fox and then rolling away. I guess he's going for the mind game on that one. Fox rolling backwards while at the ledge. Not something I can normally recommend. Normally, a roll has two benefits. First of all, it gives you invincibility. Maybe it's intangibility. I always get the two confused. But secondly, the roll also does displace your character. But the problem is that if you do it at the ledge, then you are... Man, Terry just totally... Sometimes these amiibo, let me tell you. Anyways, if you roll backwards at the ledge, you don't actually move off of the ledge. Which is nice, because it does mean you don't accidentally roll off and then fall to your death, maybe. But also, when you roll, you need to reposition yourself, and if your opponent is trying to hit where you were, and you are at the ledge, and you try to roll while you're on it, you are still in the same place, which means you are so much more likely to get hit by whatever they were going for. Terry getting his teeth knocked out at the ledge by Fox, managing to hang on to his first stock for, well, I'll at least say significantly longer than Terry was able to. But we probably shouldn't talk about that any longer for his... Terry not going for the jab-jab power dunk. Instead, it looks like he went for jab-jab down smash. Some of the characters from traditional fighting games, namely Ken, Ryu, Terry, and Kazuya, have a special feature where they can cancel some of their moves into other moves. Kazuya doesn't have that specific feature. He just gets the auto turnaround, which is usually the main indicator. At least, as far as I know, Kazuya can't cancel any of his moves. Terry gets a couple of move cancels, and down smash is not one of them, as far as I know. He actually gets fewer than Ken and Ryu, which I guess does make sense. They are from different games, so they get different privileges, I guess I'd say. Street Fighter is a game where you can cancel many moves into many moves, but from all the games Terry has been in, that's less so of a thing. And it does also factor into the game balance for Smash Brothers. Terry getting the most untrue jab-jab power dunk I think I've ever seen. It did work, to his credit, but it shouldn't have. Raw forward smash. Putting Fox off stage, he gets a footstool. Terry's able to make it back to the ledge. Fox choosing not to reflect that projectile, getting kicked in the head for it. It's the little decisions that make a big difference in these games. Terry, once again, just able to magnet hands the ledge. I don't know what hitbox that was from Fox, but it set up a combo perfectly. Despite everything we've seen this match, this is a very close game, assuming Terry keeps grabbing the ledge. Terry finally getting his go meter, his signature mechanic. I haven't really gotten to see this match because Terry keeps dying so early. And he keeps trying to play off the stage, and when he does that, he can't recover, and then he dies anyway. This match goes to Fox. And now we're at Ridley against Olimar. Two characters who exist on opposite ends of the size spectrum. Olimar is about the size of a GameCube memory card, and Ridley is oftentimes multiple stories tall. Obviously, for Smash Brothers, they get their sizes adjusted to make them able to interact with each other. Ridley tech rolling in, Olimar not punishing it, instead shooting the grab. Not a terrible decision. And that up smash is going to kill Ridley. An incredibly quick stock from... I want to say from Ridley, but I guess I have to credit Olimar for dealing all the damage so fast and then killing Ridley for it. Ridley hasn't landed a move in a while. He just got a move to land. But Olimar has not too much percent to show for how many interactions the two characters have had. Ridley actually got his neutral air there stall. Okay, so when you hit anything in Smash Brothers, you get a little bit of hit stun and hit stop. I always mix up the terms because one applies to the person you are hitting, I believe that is hit stun, and the person who is hitting the opponent gets hit stop. It mostly gives you time to recognize that you actually landed the move, and does have a nice effect of stronger moves having a lot more hit stop on them. So if the opponent gets stalled in place for a long time, then, or if you also get stalled in place for a long time, then you know that you just hit a very deadly move. But it actually comes up a lot in the matches with Olimar, since you can get that off of his Pikmin. Obviously, Olimar doesn't get hit by the hit stun when you hit his Pikmin, but you get hit by the hit stop, so your moves will often get delayed slightly. Sometimes this means that Olimar won't get hit by them, and sometimes this means that Olimar will get hit by them. Kind of more on a move-specific basis. Kind of similar to how when you're in a free-for-all, if somebody gets hit by, oh, I don't know, a Falcon Punch, it gives just a little bit longer of a frame window for someone else to land into it as well. It's not normally significant enough to specifically go for, but it does happen, and it is usually to the benefit of the one throwing the Falcon Punch. Ridley does not chase after Olimar after he hits him onto a platform. Not entirely sure about that decision. Olimar excels at a range longer than Ridley does. Ridley has his Fireball attack, which does have more range overall, I'd say, than Olimar's Pikmin. But the move is laggy and requires a little bit of a wind-up. So Ridley does normally have to get within punching distance of his opponent. Ridley able to make that back using the side special. Something to watch out for is that you can still get grabbed by it if Ridley uses it while airborne. Which, if he uses it while airborne, he's probably trying to recover, and he can and will drag you below the stage. And then the move's angle actually throws you back into the stage, but if you don't know to tech it in time, then you bounce back down to your death. Although if you're at a high enough percentage, you can actually drag Ridley to the bottom of the screen with it. Olimar goes for an up smash. It's a very long range up smash, but it's not large enough to hit the top platform. And that means that Ridley's out of the tournament, and Olimar gets to make it to the next round. Now we're going to have a match between Meta Knight and King K. Rool. Looks like we're going to be on Smashville for this one. King K. Rool immediately getting his ankles broken by Meta Knight, running up and rolling behind him. It's probably actually one of the best moves he could have done in that situation. King K. Rool's forward tilt actually has armor on his belly, which King K. Rool has his own specific mechanic called belly armor. It is effectively an extra health pool he has, where any of the attacks he uses that use his belly, you can hit his belly, and King K. Rool will not suffer the knockback, and he'll only take about half the damage. The other half going to his specific belly armor, and if that gets dealt too much damage, you get a free shield break on him. It is pretty hard to get that to happen, though, because King K. Rool can just stop using moves that use his belly for an amount of time in order to regenerate health on it. Meta Knight with a very high recovery does get uppercutted for it. Trying to land on this platform, and he gets killed by an up air from King K. Rool. King K. Rool did decide to stay on the platform while Meta Knight was able to respawn. Pretty risky play, and King K. Rool did actually get damaged for it. Since Meta Knight respawned, the respawn platform is just above the platform, giving him the most time to capitalize on his Mercy invincibility. Respawn invincibility, I guess it qualifies as a Mercy so that you can't get spawn camped or anything. King K. Rool throwing a lot more taunts than we've ever seen him do before, at least out of my recent memory. It is a concerning trait to see, but also King K. Rool has done very well in previous tournaments. In fact, I think he won one of them. Oh man, that's a sobering thought. We've had enough tournaments of April Anger that I cannot remember who won each year. Which, I guess when you think about it, this is the 5th year anniversary, so I'm pretty sure King K. Rool won the 3rd one. gonna have to look that up in post. Also, this is the 5th year anniversary that also kind of just hit me. Point blank uppercut, not quite enough to kill Meta Knight. Meta Knight's a very light character, so he does have to worry about dying early. I guess 150% isn't exactly early, but a character like King K. Rool deals a lot of damage very fast, so it feels a little bit earlier. We're only 5 minutes... we've got 5 minutes left of this match. We've already lost 3 stocks. That's an average of 1 stock lost per minute. Which isn't obscene by any measure, but it is a little bit faster than you would expect on average. And then going very far out to get King K. Rool, and the circular motion of Shuttle Loop actually gets him hit by the propeller pack. King K. Rool goes very high. Meta Knight goes very high too, trying to chase him. 2 characters were not able to meet up. Meta Knight going very high again. Always a little bit dangerous. King K. Rool's up air is a very strong move. Down throw, not able to get this forward smash follow-up. The amiibo are very good at mashing out of stuns and berries and whatnot. Great air dodge from King K. Rool, able to get a down air after that, taking Meta Knight's final stock. And here we have Donkey Kong against Sephiroth. The one-winged angel against the no-winged ape. Well, now that I think about it, most apes aren't winged. Sephiroth getting a very strong early lead here, getting a lot of neutral airs against Donkey Kong. His up air does have a long range. You have to watch out, though, it has a lot of end lag, so if you miss it, you're kind of just out of luck. Donkey Kong finally gets his turn to start hitting Sephiroth. Puts Sephiroth in his one wing, but Donkey Kong hits really hard, so he shouldn't have a hard time killing Sephiroth. Even with the amiibo not really knowing that DK's cargo throw is really good at putting people off stage where most characters can't recover. Oh, Donkey Kong barely getting the back of his head clipped by that fireball, and killing Sephiroth with that up tilt. Okay, that's not usually the move you see Donkey Kong kill with. Granted, Donkey Kong has a lot of moves to kill with, so he has options. Sephiroth throwing a fireball. Donkey Kong trying to go for a neutral air instead of a back air. The back air would have hit. Donkey Kong able to land on the stage, giving him more time to be close to Sephiroth, since Sephiroth has a significantly larger range than most characters, actually. I don't know if you've seen his sword, but in real life it would be about 3 feet long. Maybe 4. It's a little bit hard to judge, but that's a lot longer than most swords normally are. Oh, maybe it's 5. Now that I'm looking at it, it's an incredibly long katana. They actually, you can kind of tell a little bit, they had to withhold a little bit of Sephiroth's range in Smash Brothers by how he uses the sword and how he holds it. If he were to, say, hold it out in front of him as if it was a fencing rapier, he would be an absolute monster to deal with. And they still did give him good range. It's not like the sword feels shorter than it's supposed to be. But they did also show some restraint. At least in Sephiroth's frame data. Donkey Kong already got Sephiroth on his last stock, and with the wing, it's a mechanic that Sephiroth has specific to him. There's a couple of formulas that determine when Sephiroth is in danger, and when that happens, he gets his wing, and that means some of his smash attacks have some light armor on them, and he gets an extra double jump. So overall, it's a great trait for a character to have. Sephiroth can usually make it back to the stage without the extra double jump anyway. Does let him go for deeper air dodges, and if he gets his first double jump stuffed out by, say, an attack, sometimes that actually does give him the wing, so he can use his, I guess I'd call it a triple jump, to make it back to the stage successfully. It is interesting, though, because Sephiroth did really well in the tournament last year. and he's kind of on death's door against Donkey Kong. Kind of shows that certain characters just simply have better matchups against other characters. Up air, not quite killing Sephiroth. Something tried with Sephiroth that almost destroyed him again. Donkey Kong's put off stage, gets hit by an up smash, and an up tilt. Donkey Kong now has to worry about the possibility of losing this match. Weaving in and out between Sephiroth's sword, but Sephiroth is getting some good hits. Forward air by the edge is actually enough to kill Sephiroth. Got down to the wire, but Donkey Kong was able to not lose the good situation he got himself into. And for the last match of this video, we're going to have Hero against Steve. Gonna be on Final Destination for this one. Steve immediately starts out with a jumping pickaxe. It's a little more refreshing to see this Amiibo Steve fight because a lot of high-level Steve play involves running away so you can mine materials to make better weapons, and then you can engage the opponent. Which doesn't make for as engaging tournament footage, which can be a problem for April Anger since this is, in fact, a tournament. Hero gets put on stage, Accelerado almost gets him back, but then he gets domed in the head. Gonna be not a great start for Hero. Gets a combo that I never usually see connect off of Steve there. I guess Steve didn't think about using his anvil. It's a very good move. See, there it is, although now Steve is out of iron, so that's something he has to worry about. He did just get one more, so he got one more anvil worth of usage. But now he has no resources, and that can start piling up against you. Some of your better moves use iron as a resource. And when you don't have it, you just don't have access to those moves. Additionally, any blocks Steve will start to place will deplete his existing resources even more. Great spike from Hero. Able to grab the ledge successfully. And if you run out of blocks, then you can no longer place blocks as well. Which also gets to start being a pile-up effect. The ability to place blocks is probably Steve's most defining characteristic. He also has the whole resource meter in general, so it's part of his whole thing he's got going on. But it turns out the ability to place blocks and effectively be grounded wherever you want, including the middle of the air, is very influential. Hero getting a footstool on Steve, that probably saved him from getting hit by whatever Steve was planning. Hero gets a fireball fully charged up. This move you have to watch out for. It very much hurts to get hit by. Which, now that I think about it, all fireballs would hurt to get hit by. But Heroes in particular, it does take some mana, which kind of justifies its strength. Most other characters with charged projectiles, their charged projectile is just not as obscenely strong as Hero's. But Hero also can't spam it, so it's balanced in that way. Coincidentally, if it gets reflected and Hero is at I'd say about 30% or higher, it is very likely he dies. That, of course, determines on how big the stage is, if there's any walls to stop him, and also every reflector has its own individual reflect back strength multiplier. Steve has actually crafted the gold weapon set. You don't normally see that too often. They are weaker in damage, but they do come out faster. So it is useful to know, but usually when someone is trying to get better materials, they wait until they get the diamond anyway. Especially because the gold tools that Steve has have a much lower durability than almost all of his other weapons. They might even actually have lower durability than his wooden starting gear. Hero charges up an Oomph, then he gets stuck in a minecart. Oomph is I guess you could call it a status buff that makes all of Hero's attacks stronger. You didn't actually get to see it there. He has one more stock, and he could pull it out again, but Hero has around 30 spells to pick from, so chances are low we're going to see that one again. Steve should be able to recover from that. He does successfully. Forward tilt at the ledge, almost killing Steve, barely not. And a spike will kill him. That's it for this episode of April Anger. Hope you had a great time. Bye.